Yes. Hello and welcome to this short presentation within the Bridging Barriers project. Today we are going to introduce you to our approach taken in this project and addressing an essential question within the field of adult basic education. And this is what do participants need to achieve individual progress in their learning journey? And in the following presentation, we are, as I said, explaining our approach to this important question. But first of all, let us introduce you to you. My name is Eva Steinheimer. I'm a researcher at 3S in Vienna, a research institution focusing on the topics of lifelong learning, to make it short. And my role in the Bridging Barriers project is the coordination and also contributing as a researcher. And my colleague.
Hello from my side as well. My name is Günther Hefler. I'm also working here in Vienna at 3S. And I'm a senior researcher within the Bridging Barriers project and work on other cross-country comparative projects in the field of lifelong learning as well.
Fine. So I may start with a short introduction to the background of the current project. The Bridging Barriers project is based on ideas coming from another project, the Horizon 2020 funded project Enliven. The project was focusing on adult learning and the learning of younger adults in particular. And we have in this research done case studies on the evolving adult basic education sector in Austria. Within one line of work, we asked practitioners in adult basic education what they do in day-to-day work and how they have actually learned to support the learning of their students. We have interviewed 8 practitioners and studied 2 organizations in depth who provide courses in the field of adult basic education in Austria. Moreover, we have extensively consulted the literature, of course, and have reached out to various stakeholders in the field. Within this work, it became clear that participants in the adult basic education have very different needs and face different challenges in making progress in their learning. As a consequence, practitioners need to apply a broad set of strategies and tools for helping students to overcome their specific learning barriers. We found that neither the varied needs of participants nor the required competences of practitioners relevant for providing tailored support are well captured in the literature. This is certainly unfortunate, as the key competences of teachers in adult basic education remain therefore mainly invisible. These findings have been then the source of inspiration for designing the current Bridging Barriers project. So starting with the learning needs and the related challenges faced by the participants, our literature review has shown a scarcity of approaches to classify the learning needs and the related challenges in any detail. Available typologies often do not focus on the learning needs as such, and therefore not on the practitioners' approaches required to support them. They rather focus on selected socioeconomic characteristics of the learners themselves. Here the assumption is that groups of learners with some similar features have also somewhat more similar learning needs to be addressed by the programs.
So let me demonstrate the point raised some minutes ago based on an example provided by German colleagues on the case of adult basic education in Germany. They have produced a rather helpful typology, and we have translated this typology for the purpose of this presentation. And they tried to, in a certain way, disentangle all potential main groups of users of the adult basic education provision in Germany. They have applied two main dimensions for grouping participants. First of all, they divide the participants group into two lines. One group with rather a strong economic and educational background, and groups which suffer from poor economic resources and only very little educational capital, speaking with this Bourdieuian term. And on the other hand, they have tried to distinguish different reasons for what reason adults turn up in adulthood with a low level of basic skills and digital skills in particular. So they have identified social class effects, effects of gender, effects of severe distress, speaking of health issues, of issues within the family, the early loss of a parent, and so forth. They have, of course, identified immigration as one of the main backgrounds for ending up in the position of being in need of adult basic education as an adult. And they have also looked into the policies with regard to accepting or not accepting displaced people as a refugee, and all the difficulties around this topic. And by this, they come up with a topology of 7 main groups and a number of subtypes. And all these types represent certain stories lying behind the fact that you are in need of adult basic education as an adult. The typology is very helpful to identify the quite different reason for being low qualified and the different background conditions you are in this situation. Take the example of the so-called type 1, where you find adults who stem from really very disadvantaged family with experiencing quite high level of poverty and very low educational resources on the side of the parents of the family. And so within the young adulthood, a lot of adults have or had not the chance to stay with their educational purpose for a longer time or stretches of time. On the other hand, you might find a group of students from quite well-off households, but who have protested in their youth against their family background and therefore stopped participating in school. Within the field of migrants, you have completely different groups. You have, for example, the descendants of highly skilled migrant families who have already passed quite a number of years of schooling in the country of origin and have mainly the issue with German as a second language. And you have, on the other hand, you have various groups who have displaced from the home country with quite low level of school experiences or disrupted school experiences due to forceful events or war, and with a lot of further issues on their side. So the typology as such is very helpful to get a grip of the large variety of students coming into the classroom in adult basic education, but the typology itself tells very little about the specific needs of the various learners and how these needs might be met by the interventions and the type of help provided by the adult education practitioners in the field.
Good. Let us come back to an example, and we wanted to start with this fictional example for a learner in adult basic education or a potential learner. And this comes from the Danish movie Italiensk for Begynnere, or Italian for beginners in English. The movie came out in the year 2000 and was directed by Lone Scherfig. And it's in the tradition of the Dogma 95, for those of you who are interested in cinema history, maybe. And in the movie, we meet Olympia, who you see in this screenshot. She's in her late 30s and the main protagonist in this movie, and taking part in a beginner's class for Italian language. And here another screenshot from the movie where you see a quite empty classroom at the local adult education center in a Danish town with only 6 participants here following the class. But we will not spoil more of the or not too much of the content of the film, talking about the reasons why Olympia chooses to follow this class, and she is quite isolated, sitting here in the back in the beginning of the course. This can be explained by her background, her reasons for participating. Olympia is still living with her father, who she is dependent on economically, but she also cares for him because he has dementia. And nevertheless, he is an abusive figure and trying to control every aspect of Olympia's life. But one day she tries to break out a little and decides to participate in this course, although she otherwise never goes out alone or does anything else than going to work and care for her father. And this is a self-empowering act for Olympia, and she selects this specific language course because no writing is necessary in the beginner's course. So the advertisement says it's only practicing oral language, and this attracts her because she has poor competences in writing. She has learning disability and handicap that is not explained more in detail, but she has difficulties in writing. She can read and follow the course, but that's her specific challenges. And now to come back a bit more to really our topic and starting point here is an attempt to analyze her tasks and making her an example for this kind of participant in in adult basic education. So first of all, participating in a social group in this course is a valuable asset for her, and that's true for any type of adult learning. And she chooses this course because she's not excluded or doesn't fear to be excluded due to her low levels in literacy. She does, as the character in the film, quite well within the group, and also can deal with her anxiety in this specific setting. As another point, she's not motivated for more distant opportunities of progressing on an educational pathway, but she enjoys the concrete outcomes of each lesson. So the immediate practical value in these lessons is important to her. And as a third point, could mention that with her specific profile of strengths and also handicaps, so for making progress in writing, she would need more tailored training and also more instances where she can practically use this kind of competences. But this is a long-term development activity. So one might think that she would drop out of any course that does not consider her specific profile and pressuring her too much or focusing too much on her experienced weaknesses could hinder any progress. So this was the example of this fictional character, and I want to conclude with some expressions from real courses in different institutions in Austria. And as you can see, the picture of these classrooms can be very different and will be different for different locations in time or also locations geographically. In Austria, for example, the picture of those classrooms changed notably after the year 2015, when many new migrants entered these courses in order to learn German as a second language or a third, a fourth language, whatever. So very different individuals joining these courses for very different individual goals. And yeah, with Olympia, we just met one of these characters.
So what are the conclusions out of all this for our current project? I think we can address the challenge by comparing two starting points for looking into the field of adult basic education. Certainly, you could use a content-centered perspective, and you can simply ask which type of content, which type of curriculum is provided to which group of participants. And by participants, you mean a group of learners having roughly the same level of starting point and aiming at roughly the same type of progress, for example, achieving first certificate, school leaver certificate, or anything like this. You can use this approach. Alternatively, and this is what we have tried to do in the Bridging Barrier project, you can see that, of course, all your participants have quite different aims and face quite different learning challenges, often highly specific to their own individual history. So for describing what is actually taking place in the basic education classroom, you can also focus on the individualized, on the tailored provision by adult education practitioners for the various single individuals in the classroom to meet the specific needs. These needs are certainly not only on the level of, let's say, cognitive learning, so how to learn to spell a word, to write a sentence, to understand a text, to calculate, or whatever. You have similar needs on a psychosocial level, and certainly one of the key issues is to provide really useful knowledge so that the learners are kept motivated during the quite demanding process they are going through. You cannot say that in the far future you might then have a better life. You need to give the reason for the quite demanding task of today in the near future, and demonstrate that it's really useful to go through all these efforts to achieve some progress in any dimension of learning imaginable. If we map the various participants we found in the classrooms, at least in Austria, we can try to map them on 3 dimensions. We can map them for their needs as participants within a group of learners, and their needs with regard to the teacher-learner interaction. We can map them with regard to the need to have to receive really useful knowledge, so the idea of situated literacy. And it's clear that the majority or many participants might have not more demands than the general participants in any type of adult learning. Others have highly specific demands which are going far beyond what you might expect in the more generic classroom in an adult education center. Speaking of the cognitive learning needs, some of the participants have no particular issues as such. They can profit practically from any type of activity they are assigned with and make slowly but surely progress over time. Others face specific barriers they cannot penetrate on their own. They will certainly drop out of the course if they get not specific support in dealing with the specific problems and the tension arising around the issue that you cannot overcome them on your own. So in all these cases where learners see something which cannot be solved by them on their own, it's important that they receive appropriate, targeted, and tailored support so that they find a way around, that they can work through these difficulties. And this is often the core of what is taking place within the adult basic education classroom, and it also marks the core of competences by adult basic educators, that they are able to support people in situations where they cannot make progress on their own and where there's no easy way simply by doing more of the same forward. So to summarize the approach of the Bridging Barrier project, we have tried to design this overview scheme within the classroom during quite extended spells of time of participation, often with several units of teaching per week. You need, first of all, to provide a package out of providing the right conditions so that participants can participate and are met in their social and psychological needs. You need to motivate them by providing useful knowledge which can be used immediately by them in their day-to-day life. And you need to make sure that the teaching material and your approaches delivered are attuned to the learning requirements by your group. This is certainly one core of all what is taking place in the adult education, the basic education classroom. In addition, you need to be prepared to help individual learners to solve rather specific problems which block their learning progress and which have blocked learning often also at earlier stages in their life course. So it's very important that within the adult basic education classroom, additional strategies are available so that the failure to succeed in learning certain basic skills is not repeated here, but alternative solutions can be found. We say that these particular competences of adult basic educators to help learners to overcome learning barriers can be described best by the concept of deliberate practice. And we will go into the details of this concept in our next presentation. For now, we thank you very much for your attention and your interest, and we are looking forward to receive feedback from your group during the upcoming process. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye.